After a couple of days, I had the opportunity to go on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada to the beach. And of course, there were a lot of devotees, and me, I was just an insignificant little devotee who couldn't get very close to Srila Prabhupada. The ones right next to Srila Prabhupada were sannyasis, big devotees. I was one of the ones at the very end, and Prabhupada was talking, and I couldn't hear what he was saying. So I kept going like this, making this kind of like, trying to focus on what he was saying. And I kept jumping from one side to the other, trying to grasp a word from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada happened to notice that. And when we got back to the temple, Prabhupada was giving the Bhagavatam class, and that particular morning, I was sitting right in front of Srila Prabhupada, just a few feet away, maybe 4 or 5 feet away from Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada started talking about the importance of hearing. I don't remember the date, but I know that lecture is there in the archives, where Prabhupada is talking. It's a lecture in Los Angeles, where Prabhupada is talking about how a dog, Prabhupada said, he sees with his nose. The karmis, they see with their eyes, Prabhupada said. But a devotee, he sees with his ears. He said, hearing is so important. He said that is the beginning of devotional life, Sravanam. He said, our eyes will not protect us all the while. If we are asleep, our eyes are closed, and someone comes to try and do some harm to us, our eyes will not help us, will not protect us. But our ears are always attentive. He says, if someone comes to try to do some harm to us when we're asleep, our ears will tell us, wake up, wake up. Prabhupada went like this, and will tell us that someone is coming to do some harm to us. And the whole time Prabhupada was talking, he went on describing the importance of hearing. And the whole time Prabhupada was talking about this, he kept looking at me. And I truly felt that Prabhupada was talking to me as if saying, this is for you to understand, that you should do something about your hearing. He probably remembered what happened while I was in his room, and he probably saw me, jumping, trying to hear. So I don't know, I just felt that he was talking directly to me. After that, I went and tried to get a hearing aid, which I couldn't get, of course. That's another story. But yeah, that was very, very important to me. Another very interesting incident that happened in Mexico, this one devotee, Hanuman Prabhu, he had been a sannyasi who Prabhupada had sent to Argentina to preach. Unfortunately, in the course of his preaching, he had fallen down from the sannyas order and married a girl. Now, at that time, I think that was probably the first time that a sannyasi had fallen down, or one of the first times. So it was very, very grave thing that happened. And when he came to see Srila Prabhupada, he was very shy to come in front of Srila Prabhupada. He was a little afraid. And when he finally came to see Srila Prabhupada, he told Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada, said, Lord Chaitanya rejected Chota Haridas because he glanced at a woman in a lustful way. He said, so I'm just afraid that perhaps because I also lusted at a woman, perhaps you're going to reject me, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he said, Lord Chaitanya is God. He can spread this movement in a moment, if he wishes, without the help of anybody. He said, but I am just a servant of God, and I need all the help that I can get. He said, you have rendered so much service to me. How can I reject you? So that was very sweet, very touching to see how Prabhupada was so merciful to all of his devotees. Then I got to go on morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. And I remember there was one time we used to walk at this park called Chapultepec Park, which is right next to the temple in Mexico City. And there were some people there practicing martial arts. And so Prabhupada stopped to look at them. It was early in the morning. And Prabhupada turned to all of us and he said, just see, he says, whenever we talk about death, all these karmi people, they always say that they're not afraid of death. So Prabhupada said, so I say to them, if they are not afraid of death, then why are they doing this? Hoo! And Prabhupada just went like this. And, it's difficult for me to imitate Prabhupada, of course, but it was very funny the way he did it. And, of course, all the devotees started laughing at his humor. One time I made a big mistake. We had a lot of rice, which, of course, was clean in the pot from the lunch prasadam from the devotees. And we had some dal that was also clean, but, it was from lunch. And I decided to put them together and make it into a khichdi to distribute in the evening. When Prabhupada found out, he called me into his room, and he was very upset. He said to me, rice should never be reheated. Who did that? And I said, I did that, Srila Prabhupada. He said, that was a big mistake. He said, you should never reheat rice. And I said, I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada. But just as easy as Prabhupada would get angry, his compassion was also so great that, when he saw that you could take the punishment, at least in my case, perhaps it wasn't such a big mistake, but, his anger subsided. One time I brought my father to see Srila Prabhupada. Now, my father used to live in Beverly Hills at the time. He was conducting an orchestra for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Opera Company. He was a big man. He had been a medical doctor and so on and so forth. So he was a little puffed up, always looking down on a lot of people, especially on me and the devotees. He was always thinking that we were just hippies. So when I invited him to come see Srila Prabhupada, reluctantly he came. It was the old temple room. So when my father came, having to take his shoes off, he was, dressed in a very nice suit, very elegantly, and he was, well, what is this, And then the devotees were singing, and I told my father, look, that's the Maha Mantra. Sing with us, chant with us, and my father wouldn't do that. He was looking at it. And all of a sudden, the doors to Prabhupada's quarters open up, and Prabhupada walks in with his cane, very elegantly, at the same time very simply. And all the devotees just immediately pay obeisances, bow down to pay obeisances to Prabhupada. And this very puffed up man, very arrogant, very proud, when he saw Srila Prabhupada, he couldn't help. He bowed down all the way to the floor and paid his obeisances. And Srila Prabhupada passed right next to us. I didn't know Prabhupada was leaving that morning, so I didn't have the chance to actually introduce my father to Prabhupada. He would have liked that. My father would have liked that, and I know Prabhupada probably would have appreciated it as well, because he was an educated man, my father. So Prabhupada passed right next to us. He stopped for a second. He looked at both of us. He could see the resemblance. I looked just like my father. He just gave us this beautiful smile, full of compassion, full of love, and carried on. Needless to say, my father was totally changed after that. Although he didn't become a devotee, he did write something very nice about Srila Prabhupada. And I used to ask my father, what made you pay your obeisances to Prabhupada when you did not believe in any of these things? My father said to me, he said, he commanded that respect. He said he was not an ordinary person. He was someone very special, someone in the mood of goodness. Those were my father's words. I remember this one lady, she raised her hand after Prabhupada had finished the Bhagavad-gita class, and she had a question. And she said, in the Bhagavad-gita it is said that if one thinks of Krishna at the time of death, one will go to Krishna. Now my question is, what if I think of you at the time of death? Will it have the same effect? So Prabhupada didn't answer right away. He sort of closed his eyes and he was thinking for like maybe 2 seconds, and then he smiled very nicely and he said, that is very nice. He said, yes, it will have the same effect. Jaya